Good morning. Shh. Could people please also move to the front? I don't bite, at least not normally. Please move to the front. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the H3 Toronto Jewish Network event. Yossi just told me we have over 500 people registered. Absolutely amazing. Wow. Mika Amcha Yisroel. There was a well-known Gabba, whose name I would rather not mention, who was mechabed a guest to daven for Numad, to lead the services. And after he finished the services, he went up to him and said, "Thank you for davening twice." He said, "What do you mean? I only davened twice." "Well, I only davened once." He said, "No, you davened twice. That's the first time and the last time I'm going to ask you to daven here." I had the pleasure of being involved, one of the founders, and having spoken last year, and it's good to see that they still allowed me to come back to speak this year. It's also very special working together with the executive board, Bentzion Heitner, who actually spoke last year, and Yaakov Eisenberger, who put so much effort into this event. We all left last year's H3 event on a high. The buzz that the event created was unbelievable, and the tangible results and effects of that event are still being felt to this very day. People have received job offers, contracts, loans, assistance, and the list just goes on and on. Our job this year is to take that excitement and to be able to improve and continue with the amazing effects and benefits it has had on our community. The success of the event is also reflected by the number of sponsors for this year's summit, and thank you for everybody who's sponsored. The first time I heard about H3 event was actually, I wasn't sure what it meant. I think, what's the 3 in the H? I think it was meant to be originally for Halacha in the medical, legal, and accounting fields, and then I thought it was Hashkofa, Halacha, and help, and then I thought Torah, Avodah, Gemilas, Chasodim. I never got a clear answer. But the event originally hosted in Chicago was hosted by the Aguda, and thank you, and to this day is totally focused on Halacha for professionals. We felt that while we recognize the absolute importance of Halacha in business, the needs of the Frum community and Parnosa were just as important. We felt that we needed to address both issues. As a result, we renamed the event TJN, which stands for Toronto Jewish Network, or if you're from up north, maybe Thornhill Jewish Network. This is not an event that just happens once a year, but will continue to mentor, help, introduce, and network people throughout the year. We also recommend people to visit the new website, torontojewishnetwork.org, and please give us your criticisms and anything we can do to add or to improve. We welcome constructive criticism. The definition of network is when a group or system of interconnected people or things work together. To this end, we hope that all parts of our community will interact, be it Litvish, Hasidish, professionals, employees, and entrepreneurs. Be it people that are just starting to join the workforce, or people that are looking to expand their business. One of the beneficiaries of last year's event just commented to me that people don't realize how much can be done by every single business, be it from office to coffee supplies, janitorial services, headhunting, computers, insurance, etc. And if it at present doesn't exist, there isn't a Frum person, that means there's an opportunity for one more person for another business. That's why we're here today. We also need to realize that there's a trickle-down effect. Every Yid that you help give Parnosa to results in more money to the Moisdes HaTorah, the schools, and the social services provided by our community. Mitzvah Gereres Mitzvah. I'm proud to be involved with TJN, as it allows me to give back to this wonderful community of Toronto. that has enabled my wife and I to raise a beautiful family and achieve tremendous business success. This is my way of saying thank you, Hashem, and thank you, Toronto. I'd like to make a special shout out to Yossi Brown, who's been the driving force behind this amazing event. We should like to wish him continued Hatzlocha and Brocha B'chol Inyonim. Also, a special Yasher Koyach for all the people who are working in the background, and absolutely without them, the success, this event wouldn't have happened. Everyone in this room is aware of the challenges facing the Frum community. In Toronto, Thornhill, Canada, be it expensive housing, expensive cost of schooling, the high cost of living, and the difficulty of making a good parnosa. At the same time, Israel is facing an existential threat, and the scourge of anti-Semitism is raising its ugly head. I just saw on Facebook on Resume Builder that 1 in 4 hiring managers say they are less likely to move forward with Jewish applicants, and nearly 1 in 4 hiring managers say that there are too many Jews in their industry. We won't solve or be able to stop anti-Semitism with this summit, but we can make sure that we do everything possible to help our fellow Jews. I'd like to mention a point made of Yitzchok Schmidman, who founded Yeshiva Toras Chaim in the 1920s. Rabban Shechter Zatzal, who just passed away not too long ago, Chaim Berlin was one of his well-known Talmidim. He said that America was full of naysayers when it came to building Yiddishkeit in the new country. That the Posuk in the Yirmiyahu that complements the Yidden, Lech Tech Achrei B'midbar Be'eretz Loi Zerua, he says Be'eretz Loi refers to a land where negativism exists. Be'eretz Loi Zerua. Everyone says no, it can't be done, it can't happen. I just returned a week and a half ago from the President's Conference of Torah Masorah, where I also spoke, and I would like to hijack the theme for today's events, and that is, just say yes. Every legendary story, initiative, accomplishment that ever came into being that challenged reality, life, the whole world, began with one word, yes. Because we are people of giant hopes and giant hearts. We think hard, we say a prayer, and we say yes to something new like Toronto Jewish Network, which is so urgent, so necessary, and so essential for the future growth of our community. Therefore, say yes to giving Frum people more opportunities. Say yes to offering employment to people from the Frum community. Say yes to reaching out to friends to see if they have an opening for a Frum person. Say yes to being a mentor for a person in any industry. Say yes to replacing contracts for people from the Frum community. Say yes to providing financial assistance to entrepreneurs. Just say yes. Before I introduce Reb Daniel Osher Kleinman, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank one of our partners, Torah Anytime, for recording and broadcasting this event to the world. They have literally revolutionized the way Torah has been made available to the Torah world. Torah Anytime is doing something special for this convention. I encourage you to take advantage of it. They're accepting names and Yortzeit dates of your loved ones who are nifta, and on the upcoming Yortzeit, Torah Anytime will place a name on their platform and dedicate the learning day in their schus. Over 30,000 hours a day. Absolutely no charge for this service. We also have the pleasure to have with us today Ramesha Pinchas Schwed, personally a good friend from the OU, who oversees the All Torah Project, which includes All Daf, All Parsha, All Mishnah, and I think very soon All Nach. And it's really a privilege that I'm involved, actually very involved with Yaakov Eisenberger in the All Parsha initiative. And this is also an amazing game changer for learning that I'm sure many of us here today actually use at various speeds also. They're giving out a Beis Levi, by the way, if you saw it in the entrance. Thank you, Moshe Pinchas, and we're looking forward to continually working with you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Rabbi Daniel Osher Kleinman, who's the Rav and Rosh Koil of Kahal Nachlas David in Brooklyn, New York, and well-known author of the 10-volume Kovetz Halachas Piskei Rab Shmuel Kamenetsky. He joined us and spoke at the last Siyum HaShas here in Toronto, and he's in the forefront of all contemporary halacha shaylas and is an extremely sought-after speaker. Rabbi Daniel Osher, if you could please honor the event. Thank you.
Bershus, this beautiful tzibur. First of all, I'd like to begin by acknowledging Rabbi Yossi and all that he's done, and his team. When I came in last night, so the night before, the event had not officially begun, and we made a minyan for Ma'ariv in a room. There was an event taking place, a different event. We are now taking all the nitzotzos hakadusha from what was here last night. And I walked into a room, and there's boxes and wrappings and trappings and tape and wires. And I told Rabbi Yossi and those there, I said, Halavai, every person coming here should have to walk through that room to see how much it entails to put together such a beautiful, polished, professional event as this. And so Rabbi Isai, it's very difficult to fully appreciate it when you come in and you see the final product. But the effort that goes in is inestimable, and we owe them an enormous amount of Hakaras HaTov. There's a Gemara in Brachos, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara brings a pasuk, Shimu Elai Kol Abirei Leiv Harachaykim Mitzedakah. The Navi calls out to the Abirei Leiv, those whose hearts are strong, the people who are strong-hearted. Abirei Leiv harachaykim mitzedakah, the Gemara says, the pasuk says. They're far from tzedakah. And the Gemara brings a machlekes, Rav and Shmuel, who this pasuk is referring to. And the Gemara continues with a sheet of Rav Yehuda, Shmuel's Talmud. And at the end of the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi, B'nei Masa Mechasya, the people of Masa Mechasya, of the city Masa Mechasya, Abirei Leiv Ninu. They are Abirei Leiv. They are people whose hearts are strong, who are strong-hearted, strong-minded people. Why? The kachazu yikra da'iraisa, trei zimni b'shata. They see a tremendous display of kavod HaTorah twice a year. Rashi says that they see a conference, a gathering in the Besmedrash of Rav Ashi. He used to speak about it, the halachas of Pesach in Adar. He used to speak about the halachas of Sukkos in Elul. And throngs of people used to flock from all over to hear and to partake in Rav Ashi's shiurim. And Rav Ashi said, how could it be that the people of Masa Mechasya, like Giyurei Minayu, how could it be that the Umas HaOlam, the populace in Masa Mechasya, the Einam Yehudim, those who are not part of the Yiddish community, How could it be they see such a magnificent display of Kavod HaTorah and they're not inspired and moved by it? Shimu elai kol abirei leiv harechaykim mitzedakah. We are here today at an event, at a gathering. People have come not just from Toronto, but from all over the world. From Eretz Yisrael, from London, from Brooklyn, New York, from Passaic, from Muncie. Multiple people have come from all over the place to partake in a conference of Kiddush Hashem, to bring us closer to tzedakah, to bring us closer to living our lives l'shem shamayim, as a frum yid is supposed to live their lives. And it's the hope that after such a beautiful event, our hearts will be open and we will be moved, as we mentioned before, to just say yes. You're going to hear a lot today. In the morning, in the way of halacha. In the afternoon, more on the practical side of business. And it's always beneficial to stop beforehand and to think, what am I going to try to take away from today? Toiv achris davar mereshisai. If you want something to have an achris, you want to emerge with something productive, you want to be productive, you want to have something concrete. Mereshisai, we need to come in prepared. We need to open our hearts and open our minds and to focus on precisely what are we looking to accomplish today. Chazal say, Tchilas dinai shel adam is nasasa v'nasata be'emuna. And the simple pshat in nasasa v'nasata be'emuna is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks us, did you deal honestly in business? Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna. And later today we're going to speak about Mechusar Amana, how to be honest, how to be ehrlich. I was in Philadelphia by Rav Shmuel Shlita, Zal Gesund Sein, this past Tuesday. And I told the Rosh Hashiva that I'm going to be flying off to Toronto. He has a soft spot in his heart for Toronto, a special place in his heart for Toronto. That's where he came from Europe when he was a child. He says, Toronto, beautiful city. And I said, at Redendort, I'm going to speak there. It's going to be a business conference. What's the message? And he said, Medav Zogen mentioned, as in business, darf man euch sein ehrlich. You have to tell people in business, you also have to be honest. Not so pashut. Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna. But you know what emuna is? It's much more than just being honest. It's much more than just being honest with somebody else. Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna means, are we honest with ourselves? Are we honest when we wake up in the morning? Can we look ourselves in the mirror and tell ourselves that I am being the best person that I can be? Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna means, are we true to our destiny? Are we true to who we are meant to be? Are we living up to the potential that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us? Was I born into this world just to make a boatload of money and to have a big bank account? Or was I born into this world to be a good person, to make the world a better place, to care about others, to think about others? Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna means, am I being true to who I am, who I can be? Tchilas dinoi shel adam, the tchilas din of a person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to evaluate the person. Nasasa v'nasata be'amuna. Did you realize who you are and what you can accomplish and how much good you can do? It's very easy to try to be nasasa v'nasata be'amuna in a bis medrash. But in the workplace, it's much more difficult. The nisyanos are enormous. In today's world, the fast-paced nature of the way business is conducted presents myriad nisyanos, where you have to respond on the split second, you have to be able to think and answer. There are many opportunities that present themselves that look very enticing, which may not be the best thing for us. And the opposite is true as well. In Yiddishkeit, Chazal teach us that the more a person gives away of themselves, the more you get. And the reason for that is because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that somebody is a trustworthy treasurer, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that a person is reliable to be an emissary of Hashem, when a person gives tzedakah and meiser, when a person gives of themselves for others, Hashem says, look at this person, I can trust him, I'm going to give you more. And that's why we know aser b'shvil shetis asher. The Shulchan Aruch writes that the greatest form of tzedakah, shmeina meilas b'tzedakah, Shulchan Aruch says. There are 8 levels in tzedakah. What is the highest form of tzedakah? Probably hachnasas kala, right? Maybe pidyon shvuyim. That's a very important thing. We are inspired all over by feel-good movements for tzedakah. Chai Lifeline, RCCS, we all feel very good when we give to these organizations, and they are all vital and important. They are all a fundamental part of the heart of Klal Yisrael. But if you want to know what the Shulchan Aruch says is the highest form of tzedakah, shmeina meilas b'tzedakah, what's the highest form? Shmeina means l'mayla miderech hateva. 7 is the derech hateva, the 8th is always l'mayla miderech hateva. Shmeina meilas b'tzedakah, mayla gedoyla she'ein l'mayla mimena zeh hamachzik biyad Yisrael shemoch, v'noisen loy matana, oy halva, oy oisei my shutvis, oy mamsi loy malacha, kedei l'chazek es yadai ad shaloi yitzdarach lebrius. Higher than any form of tzedakah that you can do is if you know somebody who needs a loan, if you know somebody who's a vendor, who can use a job, if you know somebody who's looking for a business venture and he needs a partner, he needs capital, and you go over to him and you take him by the hand and you say, I'm going to help you. I'm going to join with you. You don't even say it's a tzedakah. You don't even tell him you're doing tzedakah. That is the highest form of tzedakah any yid can perform. Rabbi say, the fact is that many, many people can live off the crumbs of the individuals who have large businesses. The bottom line is that a person who has a multi-million-dollar or $1 billion business, let's take real estate for example, and they're expanding and they're building and they're engaged in projects. Imagine if those Fruma Yidden would take Fruma contractors and Fruma electricians and plumbers and companies that provide flooring and architects and janitorial services and management services and accountants and lawyers and title companies. Do you have a hasaga what that can do to Klal Yisrael? Is there a reason? Is there an explanation? Is there a justification for why Fruma Yidden are mefarnes einem Yehudim, where we can be mefarnes acheinu b'nei Yisrael? That's nasasa v'nasata be'emuna. That's being true to ourselves. That's being true to who we are and what our mission is in life. And that's the greatest form of tzedakah. But there are challenges. Look, they're more expensive. Sometimes they're too smart. Sometimes the expectations are too high. Many people say, look, business is business and tzedakah is tzedakah. I'd rather give him a $5,000 check than to give him a $10,000 loan. Business is business and tzedakah is tzedakah. Rabbi say the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us what he gives us. Everything we have is tzedakah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Imagine if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would say, look, business is business and tzedakah is tzedakah. Yeah? No problem, you earned it, I'll give it to you. You know how much debt we have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Business is tzedakah. The business of Klal Yisrael is tzedakah. Our focus needs to be, how can we make the world a better place? And a Yid who lives like that is oisik b'mitzvah kol yamav. Your whole life becomes one long mitzvah. Every day. There's a sif in Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Lamed Ches, in Sif Ches, in Orach Chaim, you can look it up. Koisvei tefillin, v'tagareim, v'tagarei, tagarei, and somebody who has a svarim store, Shulchan Aruch says, has a din, it's a Gemara in Sukkah, has a din of oisik b'mitzvah potter min ha-mitzvah. Zok the Magen Avram, Mishnah Berurah brings it. If their focus is that they're looking to provide a service that Klal Yisrael needs, even if they're making a parnasa off of it, but you're an oisik b'mitzvah your whole life. Nasasa v'nasata be'emunah. There's no question. There are many, many obstacles. But our avodah is to look back at the foundation of Klal Yisrael and see what we are built upon. What is this incredible ummah v'loshen called Klal Yisrael? Mamlechas Kayanim v'Goy Kadosh, what are we built on? What foundation do we have? And to reach deep within and to emulate our avos, those who started Klal Yisrael, who were literally the foundation, the basis for Klal Yisrael, and to emulate them. Avram Avinu was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'me'latecha u'me'beis avicha la'oretz asher arecha. Vayelech Avram ka'asher diber Elav Hashem. Ka'asher means when Hashem spoke to him, Avram picked himself up and he went. Aber Rebbeinu Shalom, how am I going to have kids? Rashi says on the road. It's memayit. The derech is memayit parnasa. How am I going to survive? How's this possible, Rebbeinu Shalom? But Avram Avinu just said yes. V'hemim ba'Hashem. And you know what happened? Vayachsheveha lo tzedakah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him more for that. Avram Avinu became the source of bracha for the entire world because he just said yes. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshiach Shel Yisrael, is called Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is he called Moshe Rabbeinu for? Why Moshe? The pasuk says his name was Taiv. His mother named him Taiv. Is that fair? His mother named him Taiv. And Kumta Psagiyaris, she pulls him out of the water, she calls him Moshe, and he's known as Moshe. Nobody even knows Kamat that his name is Taiv. Why is that? Ki min hamayim mishisiyu, because I pulled him out of the water. I never saw such a dishonest thing in my life. You pulled him out of the water? We all know the Rebbeinu Shalom took Basia's hand and extended it 50 feet, 100 feet. She pulled him out of the water. She takes the credit for that. That's like the candidate guy you gave a job to. And then he goes and he says, I built up Yenna's whole business, right? We all know about that. A chutzpah. He says, Kimin Amayim Mishisiyu. Zok Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, no. Basia's Hatzalah of Moshe was not a miracle. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says when a person's mentality is, I'm going to get this done. When a person sees something and they just say yes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes miracles, but those miracles are earned. That was to Basya's credit, that miracle. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu is called Moshe, to remind us that Klal Yisrael is built upon somebody whose existence was rooted in the attitude of, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save that baby. No questions asked. All the obstacles melted away because Basya said yes. The pasuk says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Klal Yisrael that there's a mitzvah of tshuva, or a mitzvah of Torah, or any mitzvah for that matter. When we hear of any mitzvah, the pasuk says, it's not something that's impossible to achieve or accomplish. It's not far away. It's not in the heavens that you'll say, how could I rise to the heavens and take it? It's not across the ocean to say, it's right here in front of you. Very shver psukim, famous psukim, difficult psukim to understand. If something is right in front of a person, you tell the person, look, it's not in the heavens and it's not across the world, it's not on the other side of the planet. That's not, you say, look, it's right here. What's the havamina? Why would I even entertain the thought that it's bashamayim? What comes first? Peh or lave? Well, most people actually, when they speak before they think. Yeah. But what should come first? First it's the lave, and then it's the peh. Bilibcha ubeficha, it should say. You know the answer? The pasuk is talking to every single one of us. And the pasuk is telling us, if you want to be successful, in ha-mitzvah hazois asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, whatever mitzvah that day is bringing, all it depends on is our attitude. Loi bashamayim hi leimor, mi ya'ala lanu hashamayim v'yikacheh lanu. V'loi me'ever layom hi leimor, mi ya'aver lanu alever hayom. Why did the pasuk have to speak with such a lengthy manner, twice to repeat the same thing? One bashamayim ever hayom. Many times people see something in front of them and they tell themselves, bashamayim hi, it's impossible, I can't do it. Many times people see an opportunity and we try to convince them and we try to encourage them and we say, look, just do this. And they say, it's me'ever layom, there's going to be too many obstacles, I can't. No, ki karoi veilecha hadavar ma'id. It's in front of you. It's attainable. It's achievable. How? Beficha ubilvavcha. You have to just say yes. You just tell yourself you're going to do it. And when you say yes, you will feel encouraged and your heart will feel encouraged to do it. La'asoisay, and you'll be able to do it. Rabbi say it's a gewaldige, it's an incredible thing. To get together for Kvayt Shemayim, to get together to focus on the halacha of conducting our businesses in the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, ribbis and contractual obligations, and Shabbos and tzedakah, nasasav and nasata ba'amunah. It's all included. Our avodah today is for those who have the yichaylas, and for those who are inspired and moved, not to let the Yisraelus fizzle and fade. Just say yes. I encourage whoever they may be, there's going to be a person. So Zayin Ayid, maybe 2 or 3, who will get together after today and we'll maybe make a little bit of a vad, a board, a group of people who will get together, maybe to make some sort of organization or a branch of an organization that will help partner, help be a shadchan, to put together big businesses and vendors, to put together those with needs and those with services. A group of Albatim, Askanim, who will be inspired to give of themselves to help Klal Yisrael. Will there be obstacles? Of course there will be. That's what the Satan is there for. If there were no obstacles, then it's not a good thing, most of the time. But Rabbi say, it's beficha ubilvavcha la'asai. If we just say yes, and we continue to say yes, and our attitude is, yes, we can, and yes, we will, then we will be Zeicha, we will be emulating Avram Avinu, we will be living up to the task, we will be doing what Klal Yisrael, what's in the fabric of every Yid to do, what Klal Yisrael is built upon. And then, when we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we ask Him for Hatzlacha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will just say yes.
Wow, amazing. I promise you, I did not tell him I'd say, just say yes, so amazing. I think they had me to introduce him to realize what a real speaker sounds like. I'd like to introduce now, is he here, Yisroel? Is he around? Yisroel Besser. Yisroel is one of the premier journalists of the Orthodox Jewish world. He's been writing for the Shpucha magazine almost from its inception, and has authored several top-selling books and autobiographies of meaningful and influential people from within the Frum community. And if you don't believe me, that's straight from his LinkedIn page. I'm just kidding. Truth is, I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing the grandfather of Yisroel, the world-famous Askan, Yisroel Besser, Oliver Sholem, whose involvement with the Aguda and Moshe Shera are legendary. I also consider Rabbi Yisroel a close personal friend. His latest book, Ba'ahava, about Benny Fishoff, is an amazing tale of Askonos and human endurance that is a must-read. I've also had the pleasure of knowing and being quite close to Benny Fishoff, and I couldn't put the book down. An amazing Askan who touched so many lives, and I really recommend everybody to buy it. He didn't ask me to do that plug. Rabbi Yisroel also happens to be a fellow Canadian from Montreal, and regrettably, his choice of hockey teams is questionable. The Canadiens, I ask you. Anyway, Rabbi Yisroel.
Bershus, the Rabbanim, the leadership of this event, so many dear friends, so many great people, as was mentioned, Daniel Osher Shlita, Rabbi Robinson, Rabbi Schwed, Naftali Miller from National Aguda. Bershus, our chairman, Rabbi Bentzion, as mentioned, it means a lot to me. I'm grateful. As Rabbi Bentzion mentioned, the close personal friendship I enjoy with him and with his children throughout the year. He's a source of encouragement, of advice. A little bit of a question. I know Rabbi Bentzion, as you do, to be an astute person, a fairly insightful person. You don't need to be a big historian. You just have to know about maybe the last 50 years or so to know that when Toronto hockey fans make fun of other cities, it doesn't end well for them. It's surprising that he would do that. Just say yes, even before a word is said today. I think that this gathering itself, you look around the room, and you feel the atmosphere, you already have a takeaway. I have no doubt. You know, as was mentioned, I live in Montreal. I grew up in Montreal, and I live there now. I don't think it's a secret that people who live out of town, people live in Canada, sometimes have maybe an inferiority complex vis-a-vis the bigger communities in the tri-state area. Oh, look at the shuls that they build, and their wedding halls are so much more convenient, and even the pizza's better. I have no doubt that when somebody said, let's do H3 Summit here in Toronto, I have no doubt that there are people who said it's a bad idea, it's not going to work. Oh, you can't, the border, the Canadian dollar, and COVID restrictions still, there's always that. I'm sure. And I'm sure that there was somebody else who said, yeah, we could do it. And yeah, it's going to work. And your first takeaway is to look around and say, Baruch Hashem, yeah, it can work. It doesn't make a difference how many people tell you no. We just need one who says yes. Just one person with spirit and vision who says yes, that's really enough to roll, Baruch Hashem. Has to be mentioned, Rav Hutner was once walking in Bnei Brak, in the streets of Bnei Brak, and from every window, it was before there were air conditionings in buildings, and from every open window, he heard the same beautiful song. It was the song of people learning Torah. Kinderlich, children learning a pasuk chumash with their malamed. Beis Medrash Bachum arguing and learning. Koil Jungelite saying chaburas. It was like a song coming out of every building. So Rav Hutner stopped and he said, the Chazal said, the Gemara says in Ma'id Katan, Haloimed Torah b'seisa, somebody who learns Torah in seclusion, in privacy. HaTorah machrezes alav b'gali. The Torah itself announces this publicly. His private actions become public knowledge. So Rav Hutner said, here in Bnei Brak, when it was just a hot, dusty orchard, there was a hut. And in that hut, learned the Heilige Chazon Ish. He sat and he toiled in Torah. He said the Chazon Ish's limud HaTorah b'seisa. He had no job, he had no role, he had no position, wasn't a Rav of a shul, wasn't a Rosh Yeshiva, but he sat and learned Torah. So Rav Hutner said the entire Bnei Brak is the public announcement of the imprint left by the private Torah of the Chazon Ish. I think it has to be mentioned that if this city was chosen to host this type of gathering, I don't think that you need to be a Navi to understand the significance that this city, this community was built by so many great men, among them the greatest, the father of modern day Torah philanthropy, Moshe Reichman, Olav Shalom. A city where Moshe Reichman lived hosts an event dedicated to dignity in the workplace, to integrity in the workplace, to generosity in the workplace, in the city of a man who embodied those values. Of course, it's no coincidence. Every gathering, everything we do these days, everywhere you go, everybody has a little part of their heart that's broken, that's trembling, because our hearts and minds, day after day, are focused on Eretz Yisrael, and you almost feel funny going through the motions of regular life. How can we go to disappointment? How could we do business? How can we go to chasnas? How does life go on at the same time? So we start gatherings, we say Tehillim, we daven, it's in our minds, of course it's in our minds. I would venture to say, perhaps, that this event itself is the greatest type of Tehillim for Eretz Yisrael, and I'll tell you what I mean. The pasuk says in Tehillim, Kapitel Pei, David HaMelech asks the Eibishter, Hofer kascha imanu. V'hofer kascha, remove your wrath. Take away your anger, imanu. Take away your anger from us. So the Rebbe, Yitzchak Avarka, was saying the pasuk that he didn't understand something. Grammatically, Hofer kascha imanu means take away your anger with us. What it should say is, Hofer kascha me imanu. Take away your anger from us, not with us. So he asked this question to big Rebbe Rav Moshe Pshischa, son of the Rebbe Rabinim, who said a lot of Tehillim. So he told him that there was a king, and the king was in a moment of wrath, of tremendous anger. He was terrifyingly angry to the point that everybody avoided him. His closest ministers, everybody just kept their distance. His big advisors, nobody wanted to go into his room because they said the king's in an angry mood now, and it's not going to end well if anybody says the wrong thing. And no one knew what to do. They were frozen. And one wise person said, go to the king family quarters. The king has he has a little anikel, a 3-year-old boy, his grandson, and he so delights in his grandson. Go ask the boy's mother to send him over here, and he'll go into the king, and you'll see that everything will be okay. And they came back, little 3-year-old cute boy, and they opened the door to the king's room, and the child comes in, the king says, you came. How are you, tzaddik? And puts him on his lap, and the king is laughing and smiling. And just like that, the anger is gone. The wrath has dissipated. So Bav Moshe Pshischa said, David HaMelech was telling Rebbeinu Shalom, not Hafer Kascha me imanu. Hafer Kascha Rebbeinu Shalom, let your wrath go away. How? Imanu. Look at us. Delight in us. Take pleasure in us. Look at Eden and say, these are my kindlech. I'm okay. Let your anger pass simply from seeing Eden. Now everything a Yid does, every Blat Gemara, every nickel in the pushka, every chesed, for sure creates favor, creates the Siyas Chen and Shemayim. But an event like this is special. Menachem Breslova writes that the word halacha is Rosh Tevis for the pasuk. Hariyu Lashem Kol Haaretz. And he understands Hariyu, Milashon friendship, connection. So he says, without halacha, there's a world, and then there's Torah. So it's a base medrash. We understand is holy. Shabbos table is holy. But what does the conference room in my office have to do with the Rebbeinu Shalom? What does my warehouse or my website have to do with the Rebbeinu Shalom? But in the world of halacha, everything is elevated, and everything is connected, and everything, so to speak, makes the world a friendlier place to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Hariyu Lashem Kol Haaretz means the whole world is the Rebbeinu Shalom's friend. The whole world makes the Rebbeinu Shalom happy. How? How? By connecting it to him. We're gathered here today to show the Rebbeinu Shalom just what a friendly place his world is to him. A few hundred people in a room who took a day off from work to say, Rebbeinu Shalom, we want to make the world friendlier to you. Hafer Kascha Imanu. The Rebbeinu Shalom should look at that, and this should be our tehillim for Achenu, our brothers and sisters, and wherever they are in Sarah. What's the best way, really the best way to make a friend? If you want someone to like you, we're trying to be nice achein by the Eibishter was saying. I think if everybody here takes a moment and thinks in their heart, they know the answer. If you're fortunate enough to have children, and if you're fortunate enough that your child had a Rebbe, or a Morah, or a teacher, or a counselor, who made them succeed, the one who unleashed them, the one who unplugged them, the one who let them fly, who let them soar, whenever you see that teacher or that Rebbe, you're filled with love for them. There's nothing you won't do for them. They're your hero, because they made your child more successful. They revealed to your child that child's potential. People who make the Rebbeinu Shalom's kindlech succeed, people who are there to make the Rebbeinu Shalom's children do better, to let them fly, to let them climb a little bit higher, are number one on the list of Nesiyas Chen, endearing themselves to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So not only the halacha aspect of today, but even the core of today, the essence of today, like we heard from the chairman and from Daniel Osher, that the ability to take your business and transform it into a vehicle for letting other Yidden succeed, that itself is the greatest form of Nesiyas Chen. There was a Rebbe, Shimon of Skarnovitz. He was a Rebbe before the war, also from the dynasty of Vorka, of Amshinov. And like many Rebbes, especially in Poland, people were destitute. And Erev Shabbos, the Yidden came by the Rebbe. They needed money to make Shabbos, so the Rebbes gave out money. It wasn't unique to his court. It was pretty much standard in every shtetl. How else am I going to make Shabbos? Yidden would come by, Reb Shimela, on Erev Shabbos for money, and he had an interesting practice, unlike other Rebbes. Instead of giving them the money, just like that, he would give them the money and say, okay, when are you going to pay me back by? Write it down, aid them. It's a loan, and I want you to pay me back. Person after person after person. A few rubles, a few pennies here, writing it down, okay. And somebody asked him once, Rabbi, come on. You know that most of these people aren't going to pay you back. They're coming here, they have nothing. They need something, they need some money to buy chalas. Well, why are you making them pay you back? Let them have the money and go, gesundheit hate. Let them go with freedom of mind to know that at least the food is there. Now they also have to leave here carrying the baggage of knowing that they owe you money. So Shlomo said, I'm not telling them that they owe me money, I'm telling them something else. I'm telling them, I know that you're down and out right now. I know that you don't even have a few pennies to buy a challah for Shabbos. You're really at the bottom of the barrel right now. But I also know that there'll be better days. I also know that you'll pick yourself up. I also know that you have the potential, that you have the capacity, that you have the gifts, and you have the abilities to be successful if you really want to. I'm not telling them to pay me back because I think I'm going to get the money back. Either I will or I won't. I'm telling them to pay me back because I'm telling them you could do this. This is not the last chapter in your story. So tonight, when they eat their chalas and their fish, they're also going to have a little bit of dignity with it. The Rebbe thinks I can make it. The Rebbe thinks I can make good on this loan. He didn't just give me tzedakah like a pauper and say, here's the money, I'm kissing it goodbye. He said, here's the money, but I have expectations from you. Telling someone I have expectations from you is the greatest compliment, because you're telling them you could be doing more. You could be more successful. Forgive me, I want to be a little honest for a moment, a little direct. But I'm not in business, so I'm not really authorized to talk from the perspective of a businessman. I do what I do, but I travel a lot, I meet a lot of people, and you hear things. The economics of the film world is a little bit strange. It's a little bit unique, very specific to this generation. You know, we all had grandfathers or maybe great-grandfathers, people who came here, in many cases after the war, some came before the war. But the common denominator between everybody is that they had a grandfather who came here with nothing. Nobody came here with money, wherever they came from and whenever they came. And somehow, they were forced with their backs to the wall to be entrepreneurs. They had no choice. They had to make it. They came here, they didn't speak the language, they had no line of credit, they had no banker, they had no connections, they had nothing. And somehow, within a generation, there was an infrastructure of a community. How did they do that? So we were talking about this. I was talking to some of my friends about this last night. One of them said, yeah, our grandfathers had a remarkable skill. It was called hunger. And hunger pushes a person to places that they didn't know they could reach. Baruch Hashem, we're not hungry, Baruch Hashem. We're not, hopefully, at risk of being evicted today from an apartment. So what happened? Where did all that resilience go? Where did all that creativity go? It's in our DNA. So what happened? We got comfortable. So Baruch Hashem, there were brachas, and a lot of those businesses that they built are still running, Baruch Hashem. And a lot of people, and certainly some of the people in this room, are even fortunate enough to work for those businesses and work in those businesses, and that's wonderful. We can't let ourselves get lulled into a false sense of thinking that we're successful just because we could pay our bills. Being successful is not the same thing as having money. You could have money, you could sleep at night, but you're not really being successful. What does that mean? It means that there's a risk. The risk of being... Somebody told me a joke recently. He says, a guy gets married, a kid gets married, he's from a very wealthy home, and he marries in to a girl from a very wealthy home. Wonderful. Great. They get married, they go to Eretz Yisrael. He learns a kaidel for a couple of years. Wonderful. Have a few children, Baruch Hashem, and then they move back to America. He's going to work. Goes, speaks to his Rebbeim, he gets chizuk, he's going into the workplace. The parents and the in-laws, they buy him a big, beautiful house, and now he's ready to go to work. So he tells his father, okay, I'm ready to join the business. So the father says, okay, go speak to this uncle. He's the one who's going to let you know. He's going to set it up with you. Great. He goes to the office. He says, uncle, I want to talk to you. I'm ready to go to work. I'm here. Look, new suit, new tie. I'm ready to roll. So the uncle says, okay, what do you have in mind? So he says, I was thinking, I spoke to my friends. I did research. I'm not just coming in here cold. I think you need at least $350,000, $400,000 a year to live. So for starters, I would like that kind of salary. I also, in Eretz Yisrael, I got very into my marriage and into my family. So I really feel like quality time with my family will make me a better worker. So I would want off a full month in the summer, the month of July, and an additional 2 weeks in the winter. I think that's important. What else? He says, the truth is that I think I'll be a better worker if I'm spiritually and physically invigorated. So I would want to leave the office 2 days a week at 4:30, play tennis a little bit. I need to learn. Of course, learning is important. These things will make me much more productive. So the uncle says, the truth is really, if you want to be productive, having a driver is really much better than driving yourself. So we're thinking we'll get you a car, maybe a Range Rover, and we'll have a driver. He'll pick you up from home every day. He'll bring you here. He'll drive you home. He says, really? You do that? You're joking. He says, yeah, I'm joking, but you started. It's a joke, but it's a joke with a lot of depth, a lot of sad depth to it. Because we live in a world a little bit by our own success has created the sense of, yeah, you came in, you didn't come in, and that comes with a risk. Because when a person, even if they have money, is not feeling maximized, is not feeling successful, then that spills over into every area of their life. It spills into their shalom bayis, into their learning, into everything. When they don't feel at the end of a week, wow, I put in a good week this week, then the person is years ago I had the chus to write a book about Reb Shlomo Freifeld. So one of his Talmidim told me how his journey to Shar Yashav, and everybody had their own journey. Most of them came from secular backgrounds, they were Balei Tshuva. So this Talmud told me over that he lived in Brooklyn, he grew up in Brooklyn, And he hated it. He despised it. The crowded, it was hot, the pollution, the congestion. And as soon as he was able, he was 18 years old, he bought a car and he drove out to Maine. And he fell in love with the land. Maine was beautiful, it was idyllic, it was peaceful, it was tranquil. He said there he experienced the true symmetry of creation as it's meant to be experienced. He got married to a Jewish girl, they moved back to Maine, and he built a house with his hands. He chopped wood, logs, and he built a house. And he ate food that they planted. He caught fish, he planted crops, they ate, and it was wonderful. Once a month, he said, he would drive to Bangor and he would go to the library because they love to read, they love to know things, and they would take out different books. One month, he sees a book on Judaism, and he tells his wife, we're Jewish, let's take it out. So they read the book, and they started to feel things and think things and wonder things. He said, we have to research this. This is real Judaism. It's not just a label, it's an identity. We have to find out more. So they have no choice. They get into the car, and they go back to New York because that's where Judaism happens, right? And they go to different rabbis, and none of the conversations really satisfy him. His last stop is Rabbi Freifeld. Someone said, you should meet Rabbi Freifeld in Far Rockaway. And he comes in, and Rabbi Freifeld says, where do you live? He says, I live in Maine. He says, how do you live there? He says, what do you mean? He says, what do you do for life? He goes, I don't need much. I built my own house. He says, what do you eat? He says, I plant my own crops. I catch fish. You know, we're good. We get by. A little this and that, but we're fine. Rabbi Freifeld says, tell me how you do that. How do you plant crops? Tell me how you build a house. And he's fascinated by it. And they connect. And he starts going to Shayashiv for Shabbos once a month. He starts going for Yantiv. Eventually, him and his wife make the jump, and they move to Far Rockaway. He joins the Kollel, and they become fully observant. He becomes frum. A few years later, his family grows up. He needs a parnasa. He moves to Monsey, and he becomes a cipher. Very talented person. And he's a cipher in Monsey. One day, the phone rings, and it's his Rebbe, it's Reb Shlomo on the phone. Reb Shlomo says to him, I want to just check in on you. How you doing? He said, okay. Reb Shlomo said, how's parnasa? You making ends meet? Making a living? He says, yeah, I get by. So he says, how? He says, I do a little safras, and I tutor kids on the side, and I take programs. There's government aid available. So Reb Shlomo says, you take programs? You take programs? You take government money? So he says, Rebbe, everybody does it. There's nothing wrong in halacha with it. The amount of money my wife and I make, we're eligible for the money. There's nothing improper about the whole thing. Most of the people where I daven also take money from the government. So Reb Shlomo says, Osher, you built your own home. You plant your own crops. You catch fish. You take money from the government? You? That means it doesn't mean it's Osher, but it's certainly Osher for you. You're a person of such potential. You're a person of such creativity. You're going to limit yourself and stick yourself in a box where that's how you live? You could be doing so much more. And I asked this Talmud, when I interviewed him, what did it feel like when your Rebbe said that to you, when he rebuked you that way? He said, it was the best feeling of my life. My Rebbe told me, I could be doing more. On a practical level, for those of us who are fortunate enough to own family businesses, it means we have to make sure that we're letting our people succeed. It has to make sure that every single person there is not just dialing it in because it's easier for us. You have to let them do new things, and it means that they're going to fail, and maybe even fail a second time. But then they'll get it right. Let them unleash the creativity in every other person who you're stealing from them. It's a disservice not to let people shine. If you work for a family business, then it means the same thing. You better make sure that you carve out an area for yourself where you're free to pursue what makes you you. You built your own home. You planted your own crops. You better make sure that you're doing what's right for you. And if your bracha is that you don't have a family business and you don't work for a family business, so say thank you Hashem for that bracha. I'm somebody who gets up in the morning and I'm being maximized because my back is to the wall. So every single day, I'm bringing out all the potential and all the kaikas that I have within me to do things because I have to. Forget economically. Even everybody knows this who's ever been in that situation. How to daven. You learn how to daven a little better when your back is to the wall, which is the greatest gift of all. That means everybody in this room has their brachas, whatever your situation is. But we just have to make sure success, making Yidden succeed doesn't just mean making sure they have money. Making Yidden succeed means that you're letting them live, that you're letting them be true to themselves, that you're letting them be them, that you're maximizing and not diminishing their potential. You're letting them be true to their own kaichas. You're letting them go in at the end of the week on Friday when they turn off their phone for Shabbos, they could say, That was a week. I did it. I put in a week. It was mentioned before that the greatest thing you could do with a business and the greatest way of partnering with the Rebbeinu Shalom is by investing in other Yidden, giving them the opportunities. And every single business has so many sub-pathways that lead into it where you could be mahana, where you could benefit another Yid. There's a woman who, Rahman al-Islam, lost her husband, an almana, alone with young children, but she had money. Her husband had been a partner in a business, and the business provided for her every month, and she was okay with money. She went into Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, that sound. She said to him, Shiva, Rabbi, I'm okay with money, and I even have a little extra money. My family, my children and I, we want to do something meaningful in memory of our husband, our father. And I have two options. There's a mikveh that's ready to give the name for this amount of money. It wasn't a huge amount of money. And there's a local shul that is building an Eitzah Asfarim, and they want to give the name in memory of my husband for the same amount of money. Where should I be putting that money? Shlomo Zalman sat there. If you're asking me, I don't think you should give the money to the mikveh, and I don't think you should give the money to the shul. I think you should put that money into an account. And once in a while, not too frequently, but when necessary, take your children somewhere special. Take them to an amusement park. Take them on a vacation. Take them out. Use that money and then tell them, guys, we did this for Abba because he wants us to live. When it's somebody's birthday, go out to a restaurant and give your kids a nice time and say, guys, that was from Abba because he wants us to live. When you have opportunities to be happy, to invest in the happiness of your family, but it's a little bit of a luxury item, not absolutely necessary, use that money and do that for your husband, and your husband will be happy and he'll be satisfied, and his neshama, where it is now, will appreciate that so much. Besides for the wisdom of Shlomo Zalman. Shlomo Zalman is the Paisik. I think there's a Chiddush here in Halacha as well. I think of Shlomo Zalman, everybody wants their name on a building. Nice. Put your name on a building, invest in a tzedakah where everybody sees and everybody knows, and you feel like it endures. It has a sense of permanence. Look, that's my name, that's my wife's name. Shlomo Zalman is saying investing in people is bigger. When you give the contract to another Yid, you call him in, and as was mentioned, it could be inconvenient sometimes. Said thing, there's all the reasons in the world, and then they want to take off Chalamoid, and they're making Chassan next Tuesday, and all the things that from people start with. It's a drag. I'd much rather go, to others, and I don't have to deal with this hassle. Okay, you could go to others, and maybe your business bottom line will look better, but you didn't build a building. When you invest in a Yid, what you're doing is his Shabbos table, that he's able to sit at the Shabbos table with Yitzhak Adas, that he's able to pay tuition, that when his son says, I would love a new hat for Yantif, the father could say, sure, go get a new hat, enjoy it. You look great. That's coming from you. You're building a building every second of every day. You're building a Yiddish life. You're building a Yiddish home. You're investing in shalom bayis, in stability, in a home functioning. Find ways, because there's no opportunities like this. And everybody who has a business and is doing business has a million ways a day to give that kind of tzedakah. Like I said, no brass plaques, but Yiddish lives that are being changed by you. In closing, Bentzion mentioned Benny Fishoff. It's the great privileges of my life. The book is not a book I wrote about him. It's a book essentially that he wrote. I would sit with him. It's really a memoir of, he reflected on his journey. It's a very honest book. Ups and downs in business. One of the most beautiful details in that book is how I asked him once, he told me how he came, he was very unusual because he was in Shanghai with a lot of the Talmidim of Mir, of Lublin, of Lubavitch, but everybody else was just trying to survive. He was a Polish kid, he was resourceful, and he was already making money in Shanghai. He was doing currency exchange. He had that streak in him. So he came to America with $5,000 in the 40s. Nobody had that kind of money. And he right away started to do business. So by the 50s, he was like a couple of years ahead of everybody else. He already had some degree of money. And by 1960, he was flying high. And he started to invest in real estate. And one of the things he did is he would go into Beis HaTalmud. He had a lot of friends there from the Mir, from Shanghai. And he would take money from people. $1,000, $500. People had saved up a little money. They wanted a better life for their children. They had hopes of buying houses. And they would invest with Benny Fishoff. And the Rebbeinu Shalom helped him. And those invested. And he told me how satisfying it was for him that these people had no chance of ever having money. And because they invested with him and those deals did well, They were able to do well. So I said, Mr. Fishoff, can I ask you a question? Wasn't it hard to take money from them? That means, isn't it easier to take $25,000 from one person than $1,000 from 25 people? First of all, it's a much less hassle, just in terms of paperwork. It's one phone call, one meeting, you have the money, and go with the deal. Second of all, you were successful enough that you could have done that. People would have given you money. Third of all, they don't wear you down with questions. Somebody gives you $25,000, he gives you the money. The guy, it's $1,000. It's all his money in the world. He's calling you every hour to check how it's doing, and he's constantly nervous about it. It's tremendous pressure. What if, chas v'shalom, you lose it, and then you wiped him out? And finally, human nature is a little bit, if I succeed and every single person in the room succeeds with me, then what kind of time does it have? What kind of flavor does it have if I'm not going to be more successful than everybody else? If they're going to join me in the success, then where's the party? I'm going to extend my house. They'll extend the same dimensions. Then what did I gain, right? So I asked him the question, and surprisingly, he didn't say, no, it was nothing. He said it was very hard. It wasn't easy for me. So he said, I'll tell you two things. First of all, he said, a Yid who learns Sfas Emes, he's a Gerach Chassid. He said, a Yid who learns Sfas Emes learns that having an ayin taiva, to fagin another Yid, there's really no English way to say that word, but to rejoice in the success of another Jew, to feel pleasure when they have pleasure, to be happy when they're up, even if it's something that you don't have, is fundamental to being a Yid. It's fundamental to believing that we're all one neshama. It's fundamental to the basic tenet of bitachon, which is nobody's taking away what's meant for you. And just because you were successful and you thought you should be, it doesn't mean that it's on your cheshbon. So he said, first of all, I try to work on having an ayin taiva. And second of all, he told me something so fundamental. He said, I would think to myself, I did a lot of risky business. I invested in a lot of deals. That was 50-50. It could have gone either way. They were not slam dunk deals. He said, I would think to myself, I have 5 partners here. Maybe this one's wife, when she was sending Shabbos and was davening, she said, Shedet here, help my husband have panasa finally. Maybe that one has a son-in-law in Kail who he's supporting, and his chus is now in my deal. Maybe the third one has chus avos. Maybe he had a great father, and those chusim are now in my deal. I don't know, he says, but every Yid has undefinable and inestimable and endless chusim that I can't see. But the more Yidden I bring into my deals, the more chusim I have. The bigger my deal is, the better potential I have for success. So he says, it wasn't a religious decision to take in Jews, it was a business decision to take in Jews. The more Yidden, the more likely I am to be successful. I said it over a few times. I have a close friend in Lakewood, young guy in real estate, and he called me up recently. He says, really, when you told me that about Benny Fishoff, I started to do it. Then he takes in people to deals. He says, I cannot tell you what a drag it is, how inconvenient it is. Every Shabbos I come into shul, there's people coming up. Did you know? He says, a guy gave me $10,000 that he had saved up from his chasna. He says, in a $10 million deal. He says, the guy saw on Kala Olam on the news that there was a flood in Delaware. He starts calling me up to check how is our property doing in Delaware because there was a flood. He says, hello, you barely own a doorknob in the property. You're calling me up, what's going on with the property? He says, but Benny Fishoff taught us that the more Yidden in a deal, that guy with his doorknob, the more is chosim. Maybe the doorknob guy is the guy who's going to tilt the success of this deal and move it into a place that is going to be successful. So I close a plea to make Yidden successful means ourselves as well, to come out of today with the clearer vision of what we want to do for our own success, to help other Yidden be successful. And with the plea to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Heilige, the Baditchev would say, Lev Yitzchak would say, as mekvetshtais Yiddish tefillas, if you squeeze out Yiddish tefillas and you put them under a microscope and you see what they're really all about, gefit min no geld. All you're going to see is money. What are Yidden really davening for? If you break down the tefillas, money, money, money. That's really the core of every tefillah. But then the Baditchev said, mekvetshtais Yiddish geld, if you squeeze out that money, was that mean? No tefillas. What's inside the money? He said, what does he need money for? He wants to pay his chal limud. He wants to make Shabbos. He wants to help his kids. What's the money going to? Just back to tefillah. It's just going back to you, Rebbeinu Shalom. So keep squeezing. The Rebbeinu Shalom should see our efforts today to help. We've never said the words Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael like we do in this last few months. Twice a week we say, we look forward to the chance to say Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. This is Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. Doing what we're doing now is Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should see it and take us me'afei l'layra. Thank you.